And welcome everyone to the Sports Writers. Here they are: Phil Stacy, Matt Williams, Nick Giannino, and Nick Kukru. I have them in that order on my screen. You may have a different arrangement, if you will. Everybody has their own arrangement, I think, on this. So if you smile, we'll start with you first. There, Matt Williams, I think you were smiling. So let's begin with you. Heather McLean and her running. Tell us a bit about that.
Oh, sure. We had a nice track meet in Boston over the weekend at the New Balance track. Many of our followers maybe had a chance to run there a couple of weeks ago. The NEC rented it out for a meet, so that a lot of the positive feedback about the track, about how fast it is and how grippy it is and all this kind of stuff. And so New Balance built the place and for the first time had their Grand Prix there this past weekend. The last two New Balance Grand Prix were in New York, of course, as they built this place. And then before that, their annual Boston meet was always at the Reggie Lewis Center. And now they got this new place where their team trains every day when the place is empty, and Heather from Peabody, the Olympian, is one of those runners, as is Drew Piazza there from Danvers. And so for them to get to experience the full place, I mean, this place holds 5,000 fans. There were about 4,000 there. They sold all 5,000 tickets. But unlike the Red Sox and probably some of the other pro sports teams, they were honest about how many people actually showed up, even though they sold them all. So they estimated it was about 4,000 in the house, which, for any event, never mind a track meet. I mean, that's a great crowd. And, Heather's race was very early in the day. It was at 4:30, and it was very exciting. It was a mile, which of course is just a tad bit longer than the 1,500 distance that they run at the Olympics and at the indoor world championships and national championships and stuff. So she won her race. It was a time of 4:23 and change. It was the eighth fastest time indoors for a mile ever run by an American woman. So she continues to climb up the ranks, and it's just really cool to get to see someone that we cover, that we follow very closely, up close and in person, right? Because they don't compete in these things around here very often. I mean, the national championships are often out in Oregon, or just it's not in the cards. The Salem News isn't going to travel to cover that stuff. Most people can't see these people in person. Her fans, her family, not everyone can fly to all the races. So for people to be able to get there and cheer her on, I mean, there were a lot of signs, a lot of noise as she was running. You could hear people with the personalized cheers and stuff. So just really cool. And the indoor world championships are at the end of this month. She's looking to defend her 1,500 meter title there for the women in American World Championships, and then try to win the national championship, I should say, and then go on to the Worlds and then go on to the outdoor season. I mean, because the pandemic delayed the Tokyo Olympics a year, I mean, we're creeping up on the next Olympics, 2024 in Paris. And so she's obviously targeting that, and she's one of the best 1,500 runners in the world right now, and just keeps getting better, just keeps dropping those times as she builds confidence in herself and gets into better and better shape. So I mean, we're probably 14, 15 months away from the United States Olympic trials for those 2024 games. So it's going to be here before you know it. And obviously we'll be following her all the way. And, just a couple of miles up the road there at the Reggie, they competed the Northeastern Conference track championships this weekend, pretty much at the same time as the Grand Prix. So, we had one of our freelance photographers, Jared Charney, was there. He took almost 30 pictures of a whole bunch of different schools. So if you're listening and you're looking for a track fix, I would encourage you to go through and click through those results. There were some great performances, I think 2 or 3 meet records and whatnot. But certainly look through the photos, because even kids that maybe didn't get a medal or whatever, have a lot of photos in there. He's got a really great variety of different events and stuff. So definitely worth checking out the picture gallery there from the Reggie.
Were you surprised, Willie, that both the PBD teams won?
No, not in the least.
Just for a point of interest for the listeners, on our website, MSO News Sports, we have a link to that story, Willie. We'll put a link up to that story from salemnews.com so you can get the photos. If you're watching on salemnews.com, just search for that story on salemnews.com from it would have been in Monday's paper, right? I think I have that right? As we
Yep. Today,
yeah,
yep.
yeah.
Or well,
So
But yeah,
yeah,
the front page Monday too. So some great work by our design staff.
Yep.
Some different sizes, different colors, all kinds of stuff. The graphics are amazing. But to answer Phil's question, I mean, I certainly was not surprised. I mean, we got cut off a few weeks ago. I mean, the two quote unquote losses that Peabody had at the New Balance meet was because they opted to try to win the state relay championship. So that was really, you could kind of take those off the table. I mean, their girls team was far and away much better than Beverly and Marblehead, those quote unquote co-champions. And for the boys, I think Beverly beat them straight up. It was the second meet of the season, and I think Beverly did a great job of distributing their points. Beverly, a very deep team, but Peabody's a top heavy team, and I just think when you get into these championship meets, those points at the top really matter more than your depth. I mean, your dual meets and your championship meets, it's often just a totally different animal. So on the girls' side, I think it was a little smoke and mirrors. I wouldn't say that on the boys' side. On the boys' side, Beverly earned that championship. I mean, they went undefeated. They defeated a really, really good Marblehead team in a dual meet as well, and they beat Peabody at full strength straight up. So, no knock on them that they finished, I think, third in the championship meet. It's just a totally different scoring system, and so it just doesn't always translate 1-to-1. Because you have everybody there. So, Beverly's, when you're only going against one team, right? If your guy finishes second, you get 3 points. And if you can get second and third, you get 4 points, which really mitigates a win, only 5 points in a dual meet. In a championship meet, you're getting 10 points for a win. And you've got, guys and girls from every single school. So, take, for instance, the 600. Gloucester won the 600. I forget the boy's name. Maybe Nick would know it off the top of his head, but that takes 10
Colby
points
Rochford.
off the table and kind of pushes Beverly, down the depth chart a little bit there. So, just the point scoring system's a little bit different and doesn't always indicate dual meet team strength. It's almost like two. I don't want to say two different sports, but it really is. I guess the way I describe it is like if anybody remembers the World Team Tennis,
Yeah.
No, Willie, no one really does. No, I don't think
the
so.
dual meets are a little bit more like the lobsters, and these championship meets are a little bit more like individualized, kind of like Wimbledon, the type of thing, if that makes sense.
Nick Kooks, give me the name of that Gloucester runner.
It was Colby Rochford Jr.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
he's fast too. They're fast. That's a fun thing about those big meets too is the just having everybody in one place. You get a lot of great competition. I mean, Danvers, for instance, I don't know exactly how they did in the dual meet, but they got so many top end runners, especially on the girls' side, your Emma Egan's, your Courtney Hitchens, your Liv St. Pierre's, so it's just great to see them race against, the top kids. I mean, that's always entertaining.
Great stuff. Nice job. Thank you. A lot of information. So again, that was in Monday's paper in the Salem News. We're recording on Monday afternoon to post on Tuesday morning here on both websites, salemnews.com, also the Gloucester Times website, and here on MSO News Sports as well. Gentlemen, let's just jump to hockey. I'm going to draw Nick Kukuru in here first, since he's got the small screen down there. Nick, you saw Gloucester pick up another win as they begin to roll in boys hockey over Masco over the weekend. So maybe give us your take on some hockey from the Cape Ann and area, and then I'm sure Phil will weigh in.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, huge win there. Gloucester 5-2 over Masco Saturday. They sweep the season series with Masco, and they hadn't beaten Masco in a long time before this season. The length of time is a little deceiving because they hadn't played a ton, but it'd been a while since they'd beaten them. Masco really had their number, but it was 1-1 game going into the third, and Gloucester got four straight goals in the third to kind of take command there. It was a pretty back and forth game through the first two periods, but Gloucester they got some depth this season. They roll out 3 lines, they roll out 6D, so they can they can handle teams like that are throwing a lot at them. And I mean, they're unbeaten in their last 9 now. I believe they're 8-1 in their last 9 games. They're kind of shooting up those rankings, and they're back in the NEC race too. Big one Saturday at Winthrop. That's the top 2 teams in the standings right now. Winthrop's got 1 tie, no losses. Gloucester's got 1 loss and 1 tie. Lost to Marblehead and the tie to Winthrop. So that's a huge one. I was telling Phil earlier this winter that I usually try to avoid those trips up to Larson Arena. Nothing against it, but unless it's a huge game, I don't really want to make that trek. But I'll definitely be making that ride on Saturday.
All right.
Phil, you've seen
Phil-
both those teams recently. What do you think? How do you handicap that one, Gloucester and Winthrop?
I'm sorry.
That was directed at Phil, right, Matt?
Yeah, I just said I think you've seen both Gloucester and
Yeah.
Winthrop recently. So how do you handicap that one?
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to Kooks. You know what? I think it's going to be an excellent game. I think Winthrop's been pretty steady all season in the conference. They really haven't had any lows at all. They've just been, steady, a steady ascension. Whereas Gloucester's has been a little bit more dramatic. They started off slow, had a real tough, by their standards anyway, first 3 weeks, and they've continually gotten better. I think they've learned that team speed is their biggest friend, and they're using that team speed and getting balanced team scoring and support, both scoring up front, obviously, and supporting their back end. Winthrop, I think Winthrop has the league's best player, Petey Silverman, and Jack Hayes, his line mate, is not too shabby either. They've got a number of solid players. Dale's system and structure is outstanding. It works really, really well for them, and they seem to me to be extremely opportunistic. So I might give Winthrop a slight edge, but the way Gloucester's playing, I certainly don't think you could rule out a win for the Fishermen when they do play. And it's what, 1 point difference in the standings, I think, Kooks?
Yeah. And Marblehead's still right there too. They beat Gloucester. I know they had a tough loss to Winthrop, but Gloucester gives them a little help, and then they maybe beat Gloucester the next time they play. They're right back in the race too.
Yeah, I suppose they could be. I know Masco kind of fell out of it with 2 losses this past week, so it is a 3-team race with 2 of the teams certainly in the forefront that we mentioned, Winthrop and Gloucester. But that does promise to be a terrific game on Saturday.
Is Winthrop a lot bigger than Gloucester, Phil? Is that one of the contrasting things?
They do have some size. I mean, I wouldn't say they have behemoths, but they have a couple of really big forwards. I'm used to seeing small, speedy forwards for Winthrop, but they have some kids with some size and that play with an edge. Have skill, but also can knock bodies out in front of the net, win pucks along the wall, use their body for leverage. Lift sticks to get possession of the puck, things like that. Again, I think Gloucester is much more, last year when they had 2 elite players in Costanzo and Marshall, they could ride those 2 guys for large stretches of a game and lean on them heavily to get big goals when they needed them. That's not the case this year, but I almost think it's worked to their advantage because they found out how to play together within Coach Geary's system, which also works very well. And, they're getting the desired results they want, and they're playing some terrific hockey right now, which, clearly you want to be doing in February as you're getting ready for the postseason later this month.
Phil, I got to follow up. You also been following Essex Tech. They lost their first game of the year this past weekend.
They did, yeah.
But obviously, Mark Leonard, fantastic coach there, and has done a fantastic job with that program. So I guess your take on losing one. Sometimes that's not the worst thing in the world to lose a game.
No, we actually talked about that after the loss to Shawsheen on Saturday, that, if it's going to happen, better now than a month from now. You don't want to be 19-1 going to the playoffs and then not have that feeling of knowing what it's like to lose. I mean, that can be an awful lot of pressure on a team to go in like that. So yeah, I think it stinks in the moment. Obviously, no one wanted to. You win 14 of your first 15 with 1 tie, and you start to think maybe we could go undefeated. Didn't happen. They got outplayed Saturday. I think it's a great lesson. I'm obviously not part of the program, but from an outside point of view, I think it's a great thing because now they can kind of reset, refocus, say, okay, we did A, B, D, C, and E wrong, but these are all correctable mistakes. Now we know what we need to do moving forward. Now we know what we need to look out for if any of these things are happening in the game, how we can correct it in the moment, not be chasing our tail, so to speak. I mean, the other day they fell behind by 2 goals in the first 6 minutes. One on a bad goal off a turnover in their own end. The other one, just a breakdown in coverage where they gave up a 2-on-1, and the same kid who scored the first goal, a little freshman, snapped home a one-timer that Kyle Mahan couldn't get to. Essex Tech cut it to 2-1. They had some good pressure at the end of the first period. Instead of coming out strong again in the second, Shawsheen takes the momentum back, starts skating better, and they get the goal again to go up 2-1. So all things that I think Essex Tech can learn. And hey, Shawsheen's it's not a fluke. I mean, they're 12-2-2, so it's not like they lost to the Sisters of the Poor here. But a really good learning lesson, because I mean, hey, let's be honest. They feel as though they can play with any team in Division III. I mean, can they? Can they play with Linfield, who's now the only undefeated team in the state? Can they play with the Situates of the world and things like that? I don't know. I mean, that's why this is going to be a good learning lesson for them moving forward. They still have a chance to win the league title once again. They're going to beat Lowell Catholic this weekend. They win the Commonwealth Athletic Conference title. They will go to the state vocational championship at BU the Saturday, I want to say, before the state tournament starts, which they won last year over Southeast Regionals. So that's another goal is theirs to shoot for. So long story short, not the worst thing, hardly the worst thing in the world, I think. It's good to be reminded to be humbled, I think, every so often, and that you are fallible, and that, if you don't do the things that led you to the point that you've already reached, you can lose. So knowing that you have that fear of losing is not a bad thing at all.
All right. Now, Matt, I want to get to girls hockey in a moment, but I got to bring Nick Giannino in because we got to just jump in and get him in here and get some basketball in here. But plus, we're getting a lot of messages from Marblehead Boys Soccer to get Nick in here too. So, Nick, tell us. I mean, I don't know what the biggest story is for boys basketball here on the North Shore in the last week, but I'm thinking Salem maybe with some of the things that wins they've been able to put together in the last week or so. Clearly, Beverly's still rolling along here, but Salem's pretty good story out there.
Yeah, Salem's looking good. They're really finding their stride. They went into the season with, I think, pretty high expectations, but they're really starting to click on both sides of the ball. Tom Doyle's got a rotation that he likes and that he's sticking with. They don't go
which
very
isn't
deep.
much of a rotation though. Right?
They don't go very deep. A couple guys off the bench. Most of those starters play the majority of the minutes with, sophomore Brayson Green, who we've mentioned on this podcast before. He's been tearing it up. He's only getting better and better. They got Chris Kajarzi, the senior leader there, lefty. He's been playing a ton of minutes for them. Jack Doyle runs the point guard very well, and he's been shooting the 3-ball well for them. He's playing a ton of minutes. But yeah, just overall, I think it's a team that plays well regardless of the opponent. They'll battle with good teams. Obviously, they had that anomaly against Beverly earlier in the year where they lost by close to 40 points, I think it was. But they'll get another crack at them this week at home in Salem on Friday, which will be a great test. And they have some big wins. They've beaten everyone else in the NEC, all the other tough teams. I believe they just beat Gloucester pretty handily, right, Nick? Maybe a 30-point win over Gloucester, and that's a Gloucester team that
40-point win.
40-point win.
Yeah, you mentioned Brayson Green. He had a little notice somebody shared on Twitter. He had a pretty nice dunk right over somebody in the lane in that game.
Yep.
Wow. Well, when I covered them against Peabody at Peabody last week, was that last week, Bill? We saw that game, and
it was just last week, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 3 dunks in the fourth quarter, like in succession. So he's not afraid to get up there and throw it down, and that helps give his team momentum.
He's a difference maker. He's a difference maker for a lot, obviously, these Salem wins. But Nick, in that game, Salem wins 41-36, right? I think that was the score.
Correct.
And Brayson had 26 of the 41 Salem points.
Yeah.
And he had the big ones coming down the stretch. So he has 26. Peabody, the team scores just 10 more points than Brayson Green does on that night. It was an unusual night for sure.
But. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was a weird game. Both coaches, it was kind of hard to describe. Obviously both teams were playing good defense, but a ton of missed shots.
Yeah.
And Salem with Green was able to get out and run a little bit and get in transition in that fourth quarter, and that was the difference. He had 14 of their 19 in the second half, 14
There
of
you
their
go.
19. So low scoring battle, but yeah, they've been beating good teams. They've been beating the teams they should beat. So they can go into the tournament with confidence here.
But actually, three statement wins in the last week and a half or so. Saugus,
August.
Marblehead, Peabody, in the game that we're just talking about, Peabody. Let me
Yep.
just jump. Let me bring Matt Williams right back in here to talk because I'm watching the clock here too. Girls hockey, we talk about big games. There wasn't a bigger game than the one last week so far on the North Shore, right? With the Winthrop Peabody game, where Winthrop wins at 3-2. But and I was there at that game. I got a chance to see that. I thought Peabody hung in there after going down two goals very early in the game. They lose 3-2, but and I guess Matt, that's the only team. Peabody's the only team that has scored 2 goals on the Winthrop girls this year. So not a bad performance for Peabody as they try to gear up for postseason. But again, congratulate Winthrop on the win this past week.
I think real quick, just on what Nick was saying. I think I feel reasonably comfortable saying this is probably the longest winning streak that Beverly boys basketball has ever had against Salem. Right? I mean, we don't have records like we do for football, but I can't imagine that Beverly's ever beaten Salem as many times in a row as they have currently. So just look forward to that game Friday, right? I mean, because that's I just think maybe Beverly had a nice run like in the 50s or something, but you just think about how dominant Salem's been in boys basketball for so long. And, Beverly was like kind of a middling team for much of the decades here. So I can't imagine there's another stretch of history with,
What
however
is
many
it right
wins.
now?
I haven't looked it up. I mean, it's got to be 6, 7, 8. I mean, I don't think that they haven't beaten them since before the pandemic, right? I mean, since
No,
before Poland was there. I'm not sure. Has Tommy ever beaten Karakutis? I mean, maybe the first year.
it's a good question.
I mean, not to like
I'd have
put
to
any
ask.
pressure on him. I don't want to create like a Mandy Zigrowski, Bob Romeo thing here, but I just think like, what a, if an alien came down and you tried to, in the 90s and you tried to tell him, hey, Beverly's going to hex Salem basketball one day, I don't think they would have believed you, you know?
Yeah, yeah. The way after the last game when Salem kind of got smoked, Tommy said they have to play their absolute best to compete with Beverly, and they'll be at home on Friday. The crowds have been into it there. It's a great gym to play. I think if they can get off to a good start, they can definitely stay with Beverly and give them a run.
Oh, yeah, a lot
Is
of
that a little
pride
bit
there. I
of
mean,
gamesmanship there, Nick, too, with Tommy saying that?
Probably.
yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of pride there. I mean, I just say that to illustrate that it should be a really, really great atmosphere there Friday night. And I mean, if you can't watch it on the TV, I mean, that's just such a great place to watch a game. That's like got the potential to be a good one, But
Absolutely.
circling back to the girls' hockey, it was a good one. Bill, I have talked to a lot of neutral parties that were at that game and were very entertained and just thought it was a great game overall to watch, a great showcase for the sport of girls hockey, which is nice to hear. Sometimes when you're in the weeds with these teams, you get caught up in the matchups and in what's going on, and you don't always see the forest for the trees, so to speak. So that was great to hear. I mean, in the last power rankings that include that game, Winthrop was number 4 and Peabody's number 8. So, I mean, 2 of the top 10 teams in Division 1. And, as we've seen with these power rankings being pretty accurate, that means that both of those teams are probably going to be around with the opportunity to potentially go to the Garden at the end. Usually your state finalists are top 10 seeds, right? Top 4 seeds in the case of Winthrop. So I guess, maybe I haven't done a good enough job of conveying just how good those teams are because, the competition in the league, it's sort of, it's almost like St. John's Prep. It starts to feel academic when you start knocking down the bowling pins of the teams that you're playing and you kind of start to take the wins for granted a little bit, right? So I think that game was maybe a reminder of just how good both of those teams can be. I know Peabody was very disappointed that they weren't able to end the hex. I mean, they haven't beaten Winthrop now since 2021, the pandemic season with the masks and the no locker rooms. And that's 5 games in a row now, including one tie, without beating their big rivals. So I know they were pretty disappointed. I mean, I think when you look at it big picture, like you said, Bill, to get down 2-0, and that most teams get down 2-0 against Winthrop and they lose 7-1, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to get down 2-0 and get it 2-2 and make a game of it, I mean, that is something to hang your hat on. I think at the same time, when you're trying to contend for a state final or win a league title, those moral victories don't really mean much to you, right? I mean, so I think that just illustrates where Peabody's at in their development as a program, that like, hey, the old college try doesn't really make them feel too good. And I would just say, where Phil highlighted the Winthrop boy there, that's probably the best player in the NEC. Julia Holmes for Winthrop girls would be my pick for MVP. She scored a goal in this game, but I thought she was just amazing in all three zones. She was so fastest player on the ice by a mile. And I thought so many subtle little stick plays, very disciplined play in this game. Winthrop took 3 penalties in the first period and then did not take any in the second or the third, which was a big departure from their usual style, and I thought behooved them very well. But I just thought Julia Holmes was great player in this one, and she would certainly have my vote for MVP of the league. If I had one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those games where you leave and you think I would watch those two teams play again.
Yep, yep.
The next day. I mean, it was a good game, and
I
it
heard
was
a
good.
lot of people say that, and I think
Yeah,
that's great to hear. Like I said, because sometimes I think all the reporters would agree. Like sometimes we just kind of get lost in the moment and don't appreciate some of these great games for what they are. And so it was great to hear that from so many different people and from you too, Bill. I mean, just that's great for the sport. I think that neutral fans want to go watch a girls hockey game and that they're entertained. I mean, I just think that's a huge progress from where we were, 5 and 10 years ago.
as someone that hangs around the basketball courts a lot too, I would have to say though it wouldn't be bad if it were in a little warmer rink than the Peabody rink that night. But other than that, that's fine. But
Yeah, maybe. I mean, hopefully, if they meet each other, it would probably be in the state.
You
The
say
state.
quarterfinals or even semis,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it would either be the round of 8 or the semis, depending on the final seeding. So that could certainly be a neutral site. Maybe we can get like a back to back. We'll get we'll get Peabody and Winthrop to play each other at like a 12 o'clock, and then at like 3 o'clock, the prep can kill whoever they're going to kill in the semifinals. We'll get it back to back. We'll even get Phil in the house. So let's do it at Songus. We'll say.
that's all right. I could stick
Okay,
out, but I would stick out another game at the Peabody. That's not bad. I'm just kidding. It was good. That's hockey weather. That's what you want. You want
I agree.
yeah, that's fine. All right, gentlemen, we got a couple minutes left. Anything you guys want to touch on? Anything else? We bounced around a little bit, but we focused in on a lot of big games, big teams, and so on from the past week. Oh, is there anything to really watch ahead for this week that we should be aware of? You've already mentioned a few things.
Yeah, we got Beverly Salem, like we said, Friday, which would be a great boys hoop game. And Beverly's also playing Catholic Memorial tomorrow, Tuesday, which should be another great game. Catholic Memorial is one of the top teams in the state. So they play them every year. And I think that's a great matchup. Good tune-up. Obviously, Beverly's going to miss Rook Landman with that injury we talked about last week on the podcast. Just feel for him. Hope he can, get through this one too after what he's dealt with throughout his high school career, and hopefully get back on the court next year and see what happens. But yeah, that should be a good one. And trying to think of any other big boys hoop matchups. No other really, top tier boys hoop this
Yeah,
week. I don't know about
yeah,
girls hoop. If you guys, we haven't touched upon girls hoop at all.
I know it's a big week upcoming for state tournament play for say track and swimming, things like that. You have the sectionals and wrestling.
Yep.
Undefeated St. John's Prep looking to defend their state title. They go up to Methuen for Division I North sectionals. Salem High School is going to host Division II this weekend. You're going to have the host there, the Witches. You're going to have Beverly there. You're going to have the combined Essex Tech Masconomet team there. Should be some great wrestling over at Salem High. And I think our Division III teams go up to Tewksbury on Saturday morning for Division III North. You get the North State swim finals. Sectionals for the girls at the Beverly YMCA, the Sterling Center on Saturday afternoon, and then the boys go at it that Sunday. So those are two good takes if you enjoy, the local high school swimming. Gymnastics, I think the Northeastern Conference meet is this Saturday night at the Sterling Center YMCA, so it's going to be a busy spot this weekend. A lot of stuff going on there. Two hockey games I know of worthy of note. St. John's Prep is holding its annual, I think it's like the 15th annual now, First Sergeant Derek Hines Memorial Game for the former St. John's Prep and West Point hockey captain who died in the line of service while serving in Afghanistan. So this is always a terrific way to honor him, and it's against his hometown high school, Newburyport High. The Clippers come down and will play at Essex Tech. At the Essex Sports Center against St. John's Saturday at 2:00. And then a few hours later on Saturday, it's the annual Can Do Classic, played in honor of the legendary Masconomet head coach Bob Driscoll, who, he was so positive, always felt like his players could do whatever they put their minds to, and can do was one of those things he always had them believing in. So Masconomet's going to play Bishop Fenwick at the McVan O'Keefe rink in Peabody at 6 p.m. on Saturday.
Nice. Good stuff.
A couple boys hoop notes and one game, we forgot to mention here on Tuesday, Peabody does play Marblehead. So
yeah,
another good matchup for those two NEC powers. And over the weekend, Pingree boys got a buzzer-beating win against Marianapolis Prep. They had lost basically at the buzzer last week to league rival Beaver Country Day on a layup. Come back, they go on the road, and Hudson Weidman hit a corner three-pointer at the horn, at the buzzer, to give them a 1 or 2 point win there on the road. So Pingree, I got my first chance to see them last week. I was really impressed with what they bring to the table. They're a talented team, and they're looking to get another rematch with Beaver Country Day, their league rival, and hopefully capture the Eastern Independent League title and get into NEPSACs and all that. But I did have a feature on one of their stars, junior Ray Cuevas, transfer from Ipswich, in the paper last week. It's still up online if you guys want to give that a read. Great player, really fun to watch. So they had a nice win. And then St. John's Prep got a win, just 5-11 on the year, but they beat Haverhill over the weekend. As of now, they're still inside the top 32 in terms of the Division I power rankings. So they're still looking to make it into the tournament. Maybe they can get a few more wins here down the stretch and surprise someone. And then I did want to shout out Danvers boys. They got a win over Bishop Fenwick. Wins have been tough to come by for Danvers this year. So that was nice to see. Aris Zaris, the football star there, got a nice double-double in the win.
Nice. Matt Williams, anything else you want to share with us here before we sign off for the week?
How about Kyrie, huh? What do you guys think of him?
Just glad he's not a Laker. Interesting trade for the Mavericks. I don't know. Mark Cuban, the owner, has said some stuff that would lead you to believe that he wasn't a big Kyrie Irving fan, in the past, but he went out and gave up quite a bit for him. And I don't know. I think he's trying to do anything to make Luka Doncic happy, right? He doesn't want Luka to go anywhere. They're looking to contend. They were kind of hovering around 500 this year. Kyrie Irving comes on the market. He's obviously a talented player. So I guess you put everything else aside and hope that that'll work well between those two. But it was an interesting move. And Willie made a good point. We were texting the other day. So they let Jalen Brunson walk, who's having an all-star caliber season for New York. Very similar type player as Kyrie Irving. And now so they let him walk for nothing, and now they give up a bunch of stuff to get Kyrie. It's just interesting to see that you get a similar player to match up with Luka there.
It all goes back to Salem after all. Like you always, all roads lead to a Brunson.
That's right. But trade deadline's coming up on Thursday for the NBA. We'll see if the Celtics make any moves. I don't think they're going to be making any big moves. Saw something today. Stephen A. Smith was saying, watch out for Kevin Durant to the Celtics. That's not happening. I don't see any scenario where they're trading a 26-year-old Jaylen Brown entering his prime for someone who's, still an exceptional talent, but 35 years old, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. And especially to screw up what they got going, doing so well this year, leading the league in their record. So maybe a marginal move. You might see Peyton Pritchard be on the move. I know he looks like he wants a bigger role next year, and maybe they just get rid of him now and see what they can get in return. Maybe Sam Hauser's on the move. He's a guy that's been, good in spots and can obviously shoot the ball, but maybe they can make a little upgrade for their bench. So we'll see what they do. I heard Kelly Olynyk's name pop up. Maybe they'll bring him back.
All right. We are out of time. Pretty tame Kyrie Irving conversation. Not bad, though. Good job. And good job for everything else here. So we'll talk again soon. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.